I was standing on the edge of the gravel path, phone in my pocket, keys in my hand, enjoying the quiet for once. The land stretched out the way it always had, open, uneven, familiar. I'd walked it dozens of times before. No fences. No signs. No gates. Just land I owned, land that predated the neighborhood behind it. That's when I heard the screaming. "Hey! You can't be here!" I turned slowly, already sensing this wasn't going to be a normal conversation. Marching toward me was a woman in HOA blue athletic wear, clipboard clutched like a weapon. Her face was red, eyes wide, voice loud enough to carry across the nearby homes. "This is HOA property," she snapped. "You're trespassing." I blinked. Once. Then again. "Excuse me?" I asked calmly. She pointed at the ground like she'd caught me mid-crime. "This land belongs to the association. You don't live here. You need to leave right now." A couple of neighbors had already stopped what they were doing. One man froze halfway through watering his lawn. A woman walking her dog slowed to a crawl. The kind of attention HOA drama always attracts. "I do live nearby," I said. "And this land is mine." That's when she laughed. A sharp, dismissive laugh, the kind people use when they think they have absolute authority. "Nice try. I'm the HOA compliance officer. I know exactly who owns what around here." She flipped her clipboard and started scanning pages like she was about to read me my rights. "You're not listed in our community records, which means you're not allowed on HOA property." There it was. That assumption. That confidence built entirely on bad information. "I'm not in your HOA," I said. Her head snapped up. "Then you definitely don't belong here." I could feel the tension shift. This wasn't just about land anymore. This was about control. About someone used to giving orders and expecting instant obedience. I stayed where I was. "Ma'am," I said evenly, "this parcel isn't part of your association. I own it outright." Her smile disappeared. "That's impossible," she said. "This path has been used by residents for years. The HOA maintains it." Used. Maintained. She said the words like they meant ownership. "I didn't say your residents don't walk here," I replied. "I said you don't own it." She stepped closer, lowering her voice but somehow making it more aggressive. "I don't know what scam you're trying to pull, but if you don't leave right now, I'll call the police and report you for trespassing." The word police hung in the air. A few neighbors murmured. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "Is this about that land again?" I nodded once. "You can call whoever you want." That stopped her cold. People who bluff don't like it when you call their bluff. She hesitated, then straightened her shoulders. "Good. Because when the police get here, you're going to have a lot of explaining to do." I reached into my pocket, not for paperwork, not yet, but for my phone. "Perfect," I said. "Because I've been meaning to clear this up." She frowned. "Clear what up?" I looked at her, then at the neighbors watching, then back at the land beneath our feet. Who actually owns this place? And that's when everything started to unravel. She pulled her phone out like she'd been waiting for this moment her entire career. Fingers tapping hard against the screen, jaw clenched, eyes never leaving me. "I'm calling this in," she announced loudly, making sure every nearby homeowner heard her. "We have an unauthorized person refusing to leave HOA property." Unauthorized. The word was doing a lot of work for her. I leaned against my truck and waited. No shouting. No arguing. That only feeds people like her. A few neighbors had drifted closer now, curiosity outweighing caution. I caught snippets of whispers. "Asterisk, isn't that the old parcel?" Asterisk, I thought the HOA just used it. The uncertainty in their voices was new. That bothered her. She ended the call and crossed her arms. "You're going to regret this," she said. "The HOA has maps, surveys, agreements. This land is common area. Everyone knows that." "Everyone assumes that," I corrected. "That's different." Her nostrils flared. "We maintain it. We paved part of the path. We pay for landscaping. That makes it ours." I shook my head. No, it doesn't. That's when she changed tactics. Instead of shouting, she went cold. If you're not in the HOA, she said slowly, then you've been trespassing on private association property for years. Do you have any idea how much back fines that could be? There it was, the threat. Fines. Liens. The HOA's favorite weapons. I reached into my glove compartment and pulled out a folded envelope, worn at the edges. I didn't open it yet. I just held it. Before we start talking about fines, I said, you should probably stop assuming this land ever belonged to your HOA. Her eyes locked onto the envelope. What is that? County records, I replied. And a survey. For the first time since she'd stormed over, she looked unsure. Just for a split second. Then she recovered. Anyone can print papers, she snapped. That doesn't mean anything. True, I said. Which is why I'm glad the police are on the way. The crowd had gone quiet now. Even the dog stopped barking. Because everyone could feel it, the shift. This wasn't going to end with me walking away embarrassed. This was heading somewhere official. Somewhere documented. She took a step back, phone in hand again, pretending to check messages. But her confidence was cracking. The HOA authority she'd leaned on so heavily suddenly felt thin. Fragile. And as the sound of a siren echoed faintly in the distance, she realized something she hadn't considered at all. If she was wrong, this wasn't just awkward. It was going to be a problem. The police cruiser rolled up slow, tires crunching against the gravel, lights off but presence undeniable. The officer stepped out, calm and professional, already scanning the scene, the gathered neighbors, the clipboard clutched to one chest, the envelope in my hand. Before he could even speak, she rushed forward. Officer, thank goodness, she said, voice sharp with relief. This man is trespassing on HOA property and refusing to leave. The officer looked at me. Is that so? I met his eyes. No, sir. I own this land. That got his attention. He turned back to her. Ma'am, do you have documentation showing the HOA owns this parcel? She didn't miss a beat. The HOA maintains it. It's been used by residents for years. It's listed on our community maps. He nodded once. Maintenance and use aren't ownership, he said evenly. Do you have a deed? She opened her mouth and closed it. That's when I unfolded the envelope and handed the officer the papers. Here's the county deed, I said, and the survey showing the parcel boundaries. This land was never part of the HOA. It predates the development. The officer studied the documents carefully. The air felt heavy as pages flipped. A neighbor leaned forward to get a better look. Another whispered, "Oh wow." Her arms tightened around the clipboard. Those could be fake, she said, but the edge in her voice was gone. The HOA has records too. Then you're welcome to present them, the officer replied. She fumbled through her clipboard, flipping pages faster than necessary. Bylaws. Rules. Maps without signatures. Nothing stamped. Nothing official. The officer waited, patient but firm. These don't establish ownership, he said finally. They show use, not title. Her face went pale. So, the officer continued, turning to me, you're not trespassing. And since this isn't HOA property, they don't have authority here. The words hit like a dropped gavel. A murmur spread through the small crowd. People looked at the land differently now. Not as shared space, but as someone's property. My property. She tried one last time. But the HOA's been responsible for this area for years. The officer handed her the papers back. Then the HOA should have checked the deed before acting like they owned it. Silence followed. And in that silence, something else became clear. This wasn't over. It was just turning into something much bigger than she ever intended. She stood there staring at the ground like it might somehow change the outcome. The clipboard that had looked so authoritative minutes ago now seemed useless, heavy in her hands. The officer turned back to her, voice calm but unmistakably final. Ma'am, he said, you don't have legal authority over this land. You need to stop interfering with the property owner. Her head snapped up. So you're just going to let him stay? she demanded, desperation creeping into her voice. "I'm not letting him do anything," the officer replied. "He's on his own property." That distinction hit hard. A few neighbors shifted uncomfortably. One of them spoke up, hesitant. "So, the HOA never owned this?" The officer shook his head. "Not according to county records." Her control was slipping fast. "But the HOA paid for improvements," she said, grasping for something, anything. "We put money into this land." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Then that's a civil issue. But it doesn't give you ownership, and it doesn't give you the right to threaten or harass the owner." The word harass landed like a slap. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The confidence that had fueled her shouting earlier was completely gone now. Phones were still recording. Neighbors were watching closely. This was no longer an HOA enforcing rules. This was an HOA representative being publicly corrected. The officer turned to me. "Do you want to press any charges for trespass or harassment?" Her eyes widened. I paused. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted her to understand the weight of that moment. "Not right now," I said. "I just want this documented." He nodded. "That's smart." He stepped aside and began writing in his notepad, documenting everything: names, statements, the deed reference. Each scratch of the pen felt like another layer of her authority peeling away. When he finished, he looked at her one last time. "I suggest the HOA stop claiming land it doesn't own. Continuing this could create legal problems." She said nothing, and as the officer walked back to his cruiser, one truth hung in the air for everyone to see. The HOA wasn't in charge here, and it never had been. The officer drove away, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than the shouting ever had. Neighbors slowly drifted back to their homes, but the looks they gave her were different now. Curious. Skeptical. No one saw her as the authority anymore. She stood there for a moment longer, clipboard tucked tight against her chest, then turned and walked back toward the subdivision without a word. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, a letter showed up in my mailbox. Certified mail, official tone, HOA letterhead. They claimed the confrontation had been a misunderstanding and politely requested an easement so residents could continue using the path. No threats. No fines. No bold language. Just a quiet request where there had once been shouting. That told me everything I needed to know. I forwarded the letter to my attorney and responded through him. The answer was simple: no access without a formal agreement, liability coverage, and compensation. Suddenly, the HOA that once acted like it owned the land was careful, respectful, silent unless necessary. Word spread fast through the neighborhood. Homeowners started asking questions about dues, about authority, about what else the HOA might be wrong about. The board stopped walking the path altogether. Maintenance crews vanished. The common area signs quietly disappeared. As for the woman who screamed that day, I never saw her confront anyone again. No more clipboards. No more shouting. Just a lesson learned the hard way. Because when you confuse assumption with ownership and power with truth, all it takes is one deed to bring the whole thing down.